From the inner sense of time comes the ancient poet's rhyme, bringing us the master key to open up the mystery. From the depth of time and space, we arrive in quiet grace, finding what is meant to be as we explore the mystery, pouring forth from days gone by. We can hear the poet sigh from the depth of ecstasy, moving into mystery. Hello, and welcome again to Creative Connections. Today my guest is Julian from Meadow Farm.
Yep.
And you are in the maple sugaring business.
Yes, I am.
How did you get started? What brought you into doing maple sugaring?
I think it was really something that, kind of interested me for a long time. You know, when I was younger, my parents used to, bring us to maple sugar shacks and sugar houses and stuff like that. And my wife and I would go up to Vermont a lot of times and do tours of those areas. So when we purchased our property and we did some forestry plans, some forestry work, the forester was, saying like, you have a lot of sugar maples. I don't know if maple syrup is any interest to you. And it was like, yes, it is. So we started out pretty slow. We had a little a small evaporator that we would set up in the springtime underneath our front deck. And we tapped, the first year, I think we tapped 11 trees on buckets. And I think we were lucky to make maybe 2 gallons of syrup.
Okay.
And it just went from there.
Yeah. How did you learn how to do it?
Yeah, people ask me that all the time, and I really I don't really have a good answer other than just going on the internet and talking to different people. There was a guy in town that did it, him and his father, and they were very helpful to me.
Okay.
I think a lot of the people in the sugaring business are very open to sharing knowledge, which is great.
It is, because sometimes people can be very precious
Oh,
about
yeah.
what they know.
Yeah, yeah.
So Meadow Farm is right here next door to us.
Yep.
In Warren.
Yep.
So you bought the farm,
Yep.
which is a bad euphemism.
Yeah, it is.
And you discovered that you had these maple trees.
Yep.
So
Yep, that's one of our product.
this is what we think of
Yep.
when we think of maple syrup.
Yep.
And again, I've always just assumed that somehow it magically appears in these bottles.
Yeah.
So I've got here, I think.
Yep. It's a lot to it. Yep.
Yeah. These are some of the maple trees.
Yeah. So this is down in our sugar bush area. We have about 7 acres. That's got the majority of our maple trees in it. It's really kind of weird on the property. That's a very delineated line from an old logging road. One side has the maples, the other side has some scattering, but the majority of the trees that are tappable are on the one side. So this picture here is just, these are our collection tanks. These are IBC totes. You've seen them for all different things. These are food grade. We have lines that run into them, and they hold about, it's 1,000 liters, so that's like 260 something gallons. And that's how we collect our sap. We pump it out into a tank on the truck, bring it up to the sugar shack.
Okay. Now, you're not using buckets.
No, not anymore.
No. We have...
Yeah, that's my friend.
Here. Yeah.
Yep.
You're using these.
Yes. So these are what we call drops. So we have, these are 5/16 tubing. And these particular spouts on here are zap back spouts. They're made by a company in Massachusetts. They're the only company that makes these. They actually are infused with silver. And the silver infusion helps prevent bacteria from getting back into the tree.
Ah.
So it keeps the tree healthier. It also keeps the tap hole open longer.
Okay.
When they first came out, they said that you wouldn't have to change them for 5 years. I think over time, sugar makers and like Proctor Maple Research Center and University of Vermont has been suggesting more along the lines of 3 years to replace them.
And I believe when we were there for the open house, I was shown one of these that squirrels have gotten to.
Yeah, squirrels are a big problem. Yeah, so squirrels, they like people, when I tell them I have problems with squirrels eating the lines, chewing the lines or the spouts or anything, that they think they're going for the sweetness of the sap. Really, if you ever drank maple sap, it's not super sweet. What they really are going for is the salt in your hands, from the oils in your hands when we're putting these up. So we've been to different, maple seminars and stuff, and they suggest you use like a neoprene glove or something like that. The problem is when you're putting these out in February, it's cold, and I'd rather have no gloves than plastic gloves on me.
Yeah.
So it's a problem. Like leather gloves are bad because they have oils in them too. This year we started using like a cotton glove with like a rubber face to them.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're not really super cold to your hand, and they give you enough dexterity that you can work with them.
Okay. Yeah. And here we have.
That's my daughter,
your
Kylie.
Daughter.
She's making some of the drops.
Yeah. And this is, and that's the other thing that impressed me. This is really a family operation.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. We do this. My wife and my daughter. I'm blessed to have them. Be very interested in doing it. I have a really good friend, Amy Bress, who was on the truck picture there. He's been with us from the start on this. He's a good friend of mine. We have another couple friends that one of Kylie's friends, Emily Cheslick, and her father come up. They started coming probably past couple of years. He's our fire maker. He loads the evaporator now. So yeah, so it works out really good to have that help.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. It really is.
That's what really impressed me. I think what we have here is your old evaporator.
Yeah, this is the old. My wife called it the redneck evaporator. It was just a little firebox really with two different pans on it, and the ladder you see behind is actually a ladder from a tree stand, and that was our support for the chimney that we put up every year, every springtime. We set this up underneath our front deck, and my wife couldn't wait for sugaring season to be over just to get rid of that. She liked making the syrup, but she didn't like the looks of that.
Yeah. So with a setup like that, how much syrup could you make in a season?
I think the best we ever did was like maybe 11 gallons. What was really tough about it is that you're out in the open. So, and there's a lot of wind up there on the hill, as you probably saw, and that really makes it hard to keep it hot. We had a little blower, like an old stove blower that we put in the front to try to, get it super hot, and it was a struggle, really.
Yeah. So.
That's a side view of it. Yep, so before we used to have to measure the depth of the syrup in the pan with a wooden ruler because we needed to keep it at a certain depth, otherwise you could burn your pan.
Okay.
So we controlled that with that little valve from the back pan, and we had a little pan on the top here that was like a warming pan for the sap coming in. That was a line from the sap coming in.
Okay.
And this was our little digital thermometer. So what we used to do is we used to typically, like, you think of syrup being made at like 7 degrees above the boiling point of water. So water is around 212 degrees depending on your location. So about 219. So we used to pull the syrup off at a little under that, and then we would bring those batches up into the house and finish them on the kitchen stove because it was easier to control the heat. So we reduce most of it here and then bring it up into the house to do it.
Now here's the other thing that amazed me. For every gallon of maple syrup,
Yeah.
how much sap goes into it?
Yeah, it's a lot. Everyone used to always say, like, and I used to say it too when I was a kid, the general rule was 40 to 1, but it's really a lot more than that. So there's a better rule to go by, and it's called the 80 rule. So you check the sugar content of your sap. So if you're like around 1.3 or 1.4%, you divide that into 80, and then you find out you need about 66 gallons of sap to make a gallon of syrup.
Okay.
So with our new process, we have other, we run through an RO system to try to remove some of the water out ahead of time. If we can take out half of the water before we start boiling, that cuts our boiling time down, our fuel down.
Okay.
We used to boil out here, till all hours of the night.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
What is the sugaring season?
So around here, for us, we usually tap trees around the weekend closest to like Valentine's Day. So around that week of February. Sometimes we've gone a little earlier, sometimes we go the week after because it all depends on the weather. But then you hope for all of March, and then you also hope you can get into April. It's like farming anything else. It's all weather dependent.
Yeah.
So, a sugar maker's ideal dream is 20 degrees at night and 40 degrees and sunny in the daytime, and the sap will run like crazy if you have
Okay, so you
temperatures like
need
that.
kind of that warming and freezing.
Yep. You need that mix. So the freezing, pushes the sap up the tree at night, and then in the daytime when it thaws out, it starts to run down, and that's when you collect it.
That is something I never even gave thought to.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, a little too much. So here's your new setup.
Yep. This was our sugar shack when we first built it. So we harvested the trees off the property, and I had it milled at an old circle mill in Charlton.
Okay.
And we used that to build the building. I kind of designed the building myself. My wife had a lot of input. She does a lot of the decorating and the specifications for we want a lot of windows, things like that. And then really my buddy Amy and I did the majority of the construction work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was actually made from wood from your property.
Yes. Yep. The only thing we didn't have is the siding wood itself. That was pine that we got from Robinson's Lumber and Hardwick. I don't have much pine on the property, but all the beams and all the supports and everything were made with
Okay.
Yeah.
And here we can see a lot of wood.
Yeah, that's the woodshed side of it.
So your whole process is a wood burning.
Yeah, it's a wood-fired arch. It's a 2x6 arch. It's 2 feet wide, 6 feet long. That woodshed holds about 6 cords of wood, and we go through that pretty much all of it. Yeah.
Okay, so but that is enough for the season, pretty much.
Sometimes.
Give or take.
Give or take. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here is a good picture of your setup.
Yep.
And, like I say, the one thing I appreciate is you're allowing people to come in to see the process.
Yep.
Because I think it gives you such a better appreciation
Yep.
for what goes into it.
Yep. Yeah, so this was taken during one of our open house days, it looks like, because there's a lot of people here that I don't recognize. They're not there on a daily basis. So, yeah, this is our evaporator. It's made by Smoky Lake. They're out of Wisconsin. They make very good equipment. They built this to the specifications that I requested. There were certain things that we learned on our other evaporator
Okay.
that didn't make sense of how it was set up. We always knew that the warmest part of the syrup pan was closest to this side, yet most of the manufacturers make it where you draw off the front. It didn't make any sense to us.
Okay.
So when we started looking at different manufacturers, that was something that we wanted. So this back side here is 4 feet by 2 feet. This is a flue pan. The bottom is it's like corrugated, so there's flues that go up and down, and the sap is in that. The fire actually goes through those corrugations and superheats the back. This is where the majority of the sap is taken off.
Okay.
This is a float box here. This float box sets the level of the syrup in the front pan.
Okay.
So, remember when we were measuring with the wooden, we don't have
Right.
to do that anymore. We set the float at what we want, and we keep the level set that way.
Yeah.
On the other side, there's one to keep the level at a certain height in the flue pan,
Okay.
and that's fed by this tank that's just out of the picture a little bit here, but that's a head tank that holds 100 gallons.
Okay. And here, this is the thermostat.
Yeah, so that's an auto draw system. So, when we bought all this, we thought we got all this stuff. It sets the levels right. It'll draw off at the right temperature. We can sit back and play cribbage and stuff. I don't think we've ever finished a game of cribbage since we started in this building. It helps out a lot, but it's you got to keep right on it. It's
Yeah.
faster too, so it makes the syrup faster.
Yeah. Because I would imagine it's this constant struggle to have it at the right temperature, but not to start scorching it.
Right. Yep, and that's what's nice about the float box, to keep that level. So when it's drawing off syrup, that float box, the float in the box kind of goes down, opens up a valve to allow the sap that's been concentrated slightly in the flue pan to go into the front.
Okay.
And all this valving here, this is called a single side reverse flow system. So when you boil sap, you create what's called niter, or it can also be called sugar sand, which sounds like it would be really yummy, but it's not. It's more sand than sugar, and it's really just like a gritty material that will sink to the bottom of your pan. And the problem is when you're drawing off from the same area all the time, that's where it concentrates. And that niter will sit on the bottom of the pan, eventually adhere to it, and then it'll create a hot spot, and now you'll start scorching your pan. So this reverse setup, every time we boil, we change the flow direction in that front pan. So it helps keep that niter suspended,
Okay.
and it won't let it sit, and adhere to the bottom.
It's so much goes into it.
Yeah.
It just really does amaze me.
Yep.
So here's kind of a front view.
Yep.
And this is where, as it
As it draws off.
draws off,
Yep. So this is an auto draw system. So we set the you could barely see there's green and whoops, did I do that? Green and red numbers on there. The red number is reading what is in the pan through the thermocouple up here, and the green number is what we set it at. So remember when I told you about the, about being around 219, but what we have to do is we have to check that density with a hydrometer. And what we find is that depending on weather, depending on the time of day, sometimes as the weather changes throughout the day, we've drawn off syrup at the correct density at like 218 point something, 0.6 or something. And we've gone as high as like 221 and have it still be light. So it's really finicky, and we really try to get it perfect.
Yeah, the thing that I realized in our visit there is that maple sugaring is a combination of art and science.
Yeah.
And probably more science than you ever realized you might use in your life.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And here is where you feed the wood.
That's where the wood is loaded. Yep. So when we're really making syrup, if there's, we kind of run a little slower when there's people around, but when we're in there just to make syrup, we have that on a timer, and we're feeding the wood as fast as we can. There's got a blower in the back, and we get that thing rolling, just so there's no downtime of the boil. We try never to lose that boil once we get it.
Yeah, and this allows you to see what's...
That's a little viewport there that you can look in there and see the fire. So we adjust our timer, based on how fast the wood's going. Sometimes you have really dry wood that'll go quicker, or sometimes we get some slab wood from sawmills, and that'll go fast. Some hardwood chunks maybe take a little bit longer. And we kind of try to mix it in when we're doing the woodshed, filling it, but it doesn't always work out that way. You want small wood, they say like wrist size, because you want a hot, fast fire.
Okay.
Yep.
So how often do you have to add wood?
Sometimes when we're really going, every 10 minutes. Sometimes like we had a day a couple weeks ago where we were adding it every 15, just because we were into some really good dense hardwood, and it was just taking a little bit longer to burn out. But we really weren't seeing a temperature difference. It was still burning hot, just longer. So
it's I can see where you wouldn't have time for cribbage.
Yeah.
And this photo just kind of reminds us that this is really a family operation.
Yep. It's my wife Deb and my daughter Kylie.
Yeah, we met her when we came.
Okay.
And Kylie sold us some maple syrup.
She's usually in charge of sales. That's an older picture because she's 18 now.
Okay. And we'll probably be upset we showed a younger picture.
Oh yeah.
So.
So this is some of the syrup we made over the years. This is one batch. That we did probably.
How do you bottle it?
Yeah, so after we draw it off the evaporator, and we've checked it for density, we'll we store it in like a big pot, holds about 15 gallons. When we're ready to bottle, we have to filter it first. So we'll bring the temperature in that container up to around 180, 185. If you go over 192, you could change the density again, or you could actually introduce more niter, which is not what you want. So we try to stay below that. We run it through a filter press. The filter press is a series of plates with filter paper in between. And it's not really the paper that does the filtering. It's we mix in diatomaceous earth, which is, like people would think of a pool filter. This is food grade diatomaceous earth. That's actually a filter aid that helps filter the impurities out. So we would mix that into the warm syrup, run it through the filter press, and it goes into our steam bottler. So we have a container that holds about 14, 15 gallons. and underneath it is a tray of water. So we're just heating the pan with steam, so we're not cooking it again, but we have to package it warm.
Okay.
And then there's just a little spigot on the front. We bottle everything in glass. It's for us. My wife is really against putting it in plastic for a couple different reasons, but I think really the main reason is for us, even as a consumer, we want to see what we're getting,
Right.
and we want our customers to be able to see what you're getting. So it forces us to be very careful in what we do,
Yeah.
and I think it gives a better product to the customer.
Well, it does. And, just, as we saw in that very first picture, the way the light goes through
Yeah.
it, it's just so beautiful to see.
Yeah,
And these bottles allow you to see that.
yeah.
If people want to buy your syrup, where do they get it?
They can get it right at our farm.
Okay.
We're at 60 Reed Street in Warren. We have a Facebook page, Deer Meadow Farm. You can look it up. During the season, we always post times when we're boiling, when we'll be open to the public. And then in the off season, we just ask that you call the house and make an appointment, and we'll gladly, sell you syrup.
Okay.
Our phone number is 413-436-0088.
Great. Yeah. And, I like that there's kind of a size for everyone.
Yeah. We started doing some half gallons this year because my nephew, his family goes through it incredibly. They have 3 kids.
Yeah, for a large family, I would imagine you
Yeah.
could go through it quickly.
Yeah, and these gallon bottles here are actually for a bed and breakfast in town that we Laurel
Okay.
Ridge in Warren. They buy all our syrup
All right.
for their customers, for their guests, and they also, have some decorative bottles on hand, usually for if the customers want to buy some.
Yeah. I grew up, of course, with like Mrs. Butterworth's and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Because I'm a Baltimore City boy.
Okay.
And growing up, I would see pure maple syrup, and I would think, why is that so expensive?
Yeah.
And as I said to you earlier, now after seeing the process, I'm thinking, how can you sell it so cheap?
Yeah. It's
It's an amazing amount of work.
yes, it is. Yeah.
But what I like about getting something like that direct from the people who make it
Yeah.
is that you are really supporting people who are doing things that are really ecologically sound,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and you can't ask for better than that.
Yeah, we're in the in the tree farm system. We didn't even talk about the amount of work that's done in the woods.
Yeah.
For thinning and maintaining the trees, and cleaning up at the end of the season, all the sterilization of the lines and taps. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a lot.
Rich, thank you so much for coming
thank
in
you.
and sharing all this with us. And I want to thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Creative Connections. Life goes by so quickly, time just slips away. But tomorrow brings a brighter day. Riding on a shooting star, heading out toward a dream. Tomorrow's even closer than it seems.